For the past 10 years, Ulysses has been desperately trying to return home to Ithaca, but in vain. After a long series of adventures, he's now stranded on an island at the ends of the earth. Faced with a destiny that has seemingly turned against him, Ulysses has given up the fight. Exhausted, memories swim round and round his head, and the day when he left Troy up in flames, believing his travails to be almost over, constantly returns to haunt him. Troy has been overrun by the Greeks. It has been razed to the ground and is in flames. It was cunning rather than strength that allowed the Greeks to take the city of Priam, due to the wooden horse dreamed up by the ingenious Ulysses. We can still see its imposing outline. In its belly were hidden the bravest of soldiers, who at nightfall slipped out of the wooden horse and opened the city gates to the Greek army. Within hours, the proud city had been taken, and its king, Priam, dragged from his palace and slain. From the shore, Ulysses revives the scenes of carnage of the past few days. Agamemnon, the king of kings, had sworn that not a single stone of Troy would remain standing. He had kept his word and had gone much further. Its streets had been turned into rivers of blood. Every inhabitant, young or old, soldier or civilian, had met with the sword during the massacre that lasted several days and nights. Women had been raped. The throats of old men slit. Innocent babes flung from the city walls. The sole survivors, Queen Hecuba, her daughter Cassandra, and her daughter-in-law Andromache, widow of Hector, the heir to the throne, are now their victors' slaves. But the thousands of Trojan lives taken would never bring back from the dead the valiant Greek warriors who had fallen in combat. The friends of Ulysses, the divine hero Achilles, Patroclus, Ajax, and Antilochus, among so many others. So many lives lost. A war fought for nothing. Or rather, to satisfy the pride of one man, Agamemnon. If the gods allowed him to do this, ponders Ulysses, then they are no longer worthy of man's praise. If the gods were unable to prevent this, then they no longer deserve our reverence, or that we place in them our faith and hope. In his heart, Ulysses feels that the age of fearing the gods, of trusting in their justice, the age which has governed man's life for thousands of years, is over. That's right. If the gods were just, as they so claim, why has the world become a place of such injustice? From now on, life would come with a taste of bitterness. Ulysses wishes for only one thing, to leave this bloodied land and return home. As they set sail, Ulysses and the Greeks who have survived this terrible war share the same frustrations. All this for nothing. Troy wasn't overflowing with gold and jewels, as the King of Kings Agamemnon had promised. Its only treasure was its people, and they had been wiped out to avenge the Greek heroes fallen in combat. The soldiers on board Ulysses' ships leave for Ithaca empty-handed, their hearts heavy, their souls darkened by their crimes. For one last time, Ulysses contemplates the scene of desolation, then turns to his two closest captains and lifelong friends, Eurylochus and Polites. Extreme exhaustion weighs them down. From Mount Olympus, Zeus has seen everything. Moreover, he has understood. What is happening inside Ulysses' heart is the most terrible of threats to the immortal gods. Probably worse than all the disputes and battles waged since the dawn of time by the divinities of Olympus, which finally led to the Trojan War and the countless number of lives sacrificed. Because within Ulysses are sprouting the seeds of an evil which risks spreading at lightning speed. An evil feared by all the gods. An evil that men have named atheism. Athena is at her father's side. She is the goddess of war and protected the Greeks throughout the conflict. She kept a particular watch over Ulysses. She admires his inventiveness, his cunning and trickery. She asks her father to ensure that Ulysses' return to his homeland of Ithaca is smooth and peaceful, because he fully deserves it. But Zeus explodes. Has his daughter forgotten that while she is the goddess of war, she is also that of reason and wisdom? What is to be expected of Ulysses' recently changed behavior? A passing whim, replies Athena. But it will not pass. Zeus knows this full well. If a man, a mere mortal, begins to doubt the mightiness of the gods, if he abandons all belief in them, their very existence will soon be brought into question. What's more, all the power and glory of the gods depends solely on the belief that men place in them. If men turn away, cease believing, cease fearing, cease sacrificing hecatombs, and cease singing their praises, then the gods' powers on earth will be lost forever. Athena knows this and agrees. Then Ulysses must be punished, thunders Zeus. To prevent atheism from spreading throughout the world of men, Ulysses must perish on his homeward journey. Suddenly, the wind picks up. A mighty swell pushes Ulysses' fleet landwards. It needs to find a safe haven. Ulysses recognizes the coast. It's that of Ismarus, the land of the Cicones, allies of the Trojans, and thus the enemies of the Greeks. As he and his men may need to shelter here for some time, Ulysses decides to stock up on supplies. But his men overstep his orders and pillage the nearby city. They slaughter the Cicones and spend their time getting drunk in taverns. Eurylochus tries to step in. This will incur the wrath of the gods. But Ulysses can't bring himself to stop his men. The gods, he mutters under his breath. An old man flings himself at Ulysses' feet, a priest of Apollo. He offers the king of Ithaca gold and amphorae of fine wine in exchange for sparing him and his family. Ulysses distractedly accepts. On seeing the Ciconian corpses piled up in the streets, his mind is swimming. More death. But we're no longer before the walls of Troy. The war is over. This new conflict makes no sense. Ulysses swiftly orders his men to return to their ships. But as his soldiers, still drunken and heavy with the weight of their war booty, clamber aboard their ships, arrows rain down on the Greeks. They are shot by Cicones coming from the inland, alerted by a handful of escapees from the massacre. These reinforcements bear down on Ulysses and his crew. The Greeks attempt to put up a fight, but a number of them fall in battle. Flight is the only option. Eurylochus points out to Ulysses that they have left behind their dead countrymen unburied. Their souls will wander the earth aimlessly without ever knowing eternal rest. For a Greek, this is the worst form of punishment. Ulysses regrets this, but he had no choice. Zeus and Athena witnessed what happened in the land of the Cicones. Does Athena not see what impiety her protege is guilty of by abandoning the bodies of his dead men? Athena understands the threat that Ulysses poses. Yes, he scorns the gods. Yes, he seems no longer to believe in them. But he must not be killed. He must be brought to reason. If Ulysses has truly lost his faith, then striking him down with a thunderbolt will not prevent his ideas from spreading amongst men. The tale of the destruction of Troy will reach the ears of other mortals who, learning of so many deaths, which they will see as unjust and pointless, will start thinking like Ulysses. No. What must be done is for Zeus to let her protect him as she always has done. By helping him through his travails and causing him to bow down in gratitude, she will sweep away these new ideas. If he returns home safe and sound, guided by a goddess, Ulysses will be forced to admit that despite all the deaths of the Trojan War, the gods remain almighty. He will return to the correct path and forget his seditious ideas. Zeus thinks for a long time. He's still unconvinced that he should let Ulysses depart in peace. It's been 4 weeks since Ulysses and his crew set sail from Troy. A navigator sets the course. All recognize the cliffs of Ithaca. Cries of joy break out. Soon they will be home. Finally, back home. But suddenly, the sky becomes heavy with clouds and thunder rings out. A new storm, even more fearful than the last, pushes the fleet out to sea. The crews are plunged into darkness. And in spite of their best efforts, the swell carries them far from Ithaca. They're heading in the opposite direction, due south. After a week-long storm, Ulysses and his ships finally find haven off an unknown land. Ulysses decides to explore in order to find supplies. He leaves 3 men with the ships to guard them and sets off inland with the rest of his men. A few hours later they return, their arms laden with supplies. But the men left behind as guards have vanished. Ulysses refuses to leave without them. They must be found, dead or alive. After a seemingly endless march, they reach the outskirts of a village. They're greeted by smiling men, women, and children. Ulysses asks them if they know anything about his 3 lost men. In response, they lead him to one of their huts. His men are there, safe and sound, sitting on the ground with a blissful look on their faces, eating strange pink fruits. They look at Ulysses as if he were a complete stranger. Ulysses tries to bring them around by talking about Ithaca and their families, but in vain. The 3 men remember nothing and nobody. One of the villagers who led Ulysses to the hut offers him one of the strange fruits and urges him to try it. It's the fruit of the lotus, he explains. It has the power to make you forget the past, to erase all memories forever. Of people, places, and places you knew, nothing remains. A light dizziness comes over Ulysses. To forget the past? To never see the scenes that haunt him ever again? Could it be possible? A kind of rebirth? The lotus eaters are upset by this gesture. Their fruit, their offering, thrown to the ground is a blasphemy. Their anger mounts, swords are drawn. Ulysses and his men must flee. They grab their 3 companions, still in a blissful state, and drag them back to the ships. Thick fog covers the sea. It makes navigation perilous. The crew can't differentiate between north and south. At dawn on the 6th day, an island is spotted in the distance. It seems to be dotted with pine and oak trees and is dominated by mountains. The island of the three Cyclopes. The crew begins to tremble with fear. The Cyclopes are giants. They are said to be the sons of Poseidon, the god of the sea. They have a reputation of being vindictive, proud, and disrespectful of all laws. They neither plow nor sow, and yet supposedly lack nothing. Without exerting the slightest effort, their fields produce wheat and their vines heavy bunches of grapes. It's also said that they don't live in the plains, but in deep caverns. And they devour anyone who dares to set foot on their land. Ulysses decides to explore the island. Since fate has dealt them a cruel hand and prevents them from returning to Ithaca, they will take this opportunity to discover the world's hidden curiosities. What's more, they need supplies. On board his ships, all that is left is wine, which Ulysses, dressed once again in his armor, takes with him. Soon, Ulysses and his men find themselves before the entrance to a cave high up on a cliff overlooking the sea. The home of a Cyclops, no doubt. Having ensured that the place is deserted, the Greeks enter the cave. It's vast. Inside, they discover dozens of baskets filled with food. The terrified sailors suggest taking the baskets of food and the flock of sheep at pasture just outside the cave and heading back to their ships as fast as possible. But Ulysses refuses. He won't leave without setting eyes on one of the infamous Cyclopes. Suddenly, they hear heavy footsteps. They hide in the darkest corner to the rear of the cave. A shape fills the entrance, so imposing that only the creature's legs can be seen. Legs so thick, they block all sunlight from entering. Ulysses crawls out of his hiding place. He carefully raises his head to get a better look. But the Cyclops has sensed the presence of men, and on entering his cave, spots Ulysses and his crew huddled together, shaking like leaves. He demands to know who they are and where they're from. Ulysses tells them they are warriors on their way home from Troy, and that unfavorable winds force them towards this island. They beg for the Cyclops' hospitality. The Cyclops roars with laughter. Hospitality. In response, he seizes two of the sailors, raises them like straw dolls, and flings them against the wall of the cave. Ulysses is petrified.